So at this point, I think we know how the reviews go at the wine cellar. Did I like the game? Did I not like the game? Is there good stuff? Is there bad stuff? Is there really, really ugly stuff? Yikes. But ultimately, you kind of walk away with an understanding of whether or not you should spend your time and money on this game. And today's review is going to be about Scarf, a little indie darling coming from Uprising Studios, and it's a nice little cozy Sunday game. Now, y'all know how I feel about my Sunday cozy games. Anything that I can just kind of turn on, kill a couple of hours, and feel like it's satisfying, fulfilling, I got that gamer itch scratched, I'm always going to be on board for. And this kind of falls into that category. It is short, and we'll get into that a little bit more with the review, but again, my name is Vanessa, aka PT, aka Pleasantly Twisted, and we're going to talk a little bit about Scarf. So you can see through some of the menus here that there's a lot to do. It is a short game, but there's a lot to do. There's a lot in terms of collectibles, there's a lot in terms of hidden items and stories. This is going to be predominantly spoiler-free because some of the collectibles can alter the storyline for you. Just out the gate, you can see that it's very colorful, very, very just clean and precise in its presentation. And I do have to hit it with its first big ding, and that's the fact that I am so sad that you cannot rebind your buttons. Colorblind is dope. Love that for you. But you can't rebind the buttons. Now, I'm not going to hold that over their head because, again, this is a smaller studio. It is kind of an offshoot of THQ Nordic, but it is not THQ Nordic. So I'm not going to sit here and say, I just can't believe in the year of our Lord that you didn't have this done. But yeah, that's probably the only real big thing that really turned me off from it. Other things are just really minor. So the story of Scarf is very straightforward, very simple. You are a nomad, and you are traveling the world to put back together a gate that sends you to see, quote-unquote, Mother. And this is kind of like the Scarf Mother. I don't really know what she's supposed to be symbolic of. She kind of looks like a dragon, she kind of looks like a lizard, but I really appreciate that it leaves it open to interpretation like that because it allows you as the player to kind of put your own kind of narrative and spin on it. The only things that are very concrete is that she is mom, you are a nomad, and the scarf is a living entity. It's beautiful, it's stunning, but it's still a living entity. And as you're progressing through the game, you will learn how to use your scarf friendo to traverse different types of platforms, different types of puzzles, different types of terrains. Now, I will say that the story itself is a little predictable. It's a little predictable, but that's okay, because I didn't really come here and walk into this game with the expectation that it was going to be really heavy, deep story and lore. It's honestly speaking, a smooth 5 to 7 hour platforming game. And as you can see, it's a platforming game. You fulfill puzzles, you learn tricks, you learn moves, you learn skills. You have other nomads that you kind of approach and interact with, and I don't know if I want to say you steal their powers. That's not quite true, but it is definitely something that as the story progresses, you'll see more and more what's really, really happening. The movement in the game is very, very tight, very clean, very concise. I didn't have any problems kind of moving around and navigating. I have been a little spoiled with recent platformers having much more clear shadows on the ground for where I'm jumping, but it just reminds me a lot of the old school like Crash Bandicoots and Ratchet and Clanks and Jack and Daxters of that timeline before you had all the extra clean stuff. And that's okay. That's okay. That's not a dig in any way, shape, or form. But the biggest thing I think that shines about this game is the sound design and the raw aesthetic. Because the game it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's very, very pretty. It's very colorful. It has a lot of really good effects and textures to really highlight where things are, how they interact, how they navigate. And I really, really like the way that they handled a lot of things like the disappearing platforms that you can see here, which also tie directly back to the storyline. Because as I mentioned before, the scarf that you're wearing is a living entity. And you'll notice that as you're progressing through the game, the scarf changes, it shifts, it molds differently, it's very malleable, but also even some of the platforms in the environment changes based on your progression in the game and your relationship to the scarf. So disappearing platforms are also made with the same fibers and threads that your scarf is made with. And then earlier in the video you saw that there were little symbols on the scarf. Those are how you keep track of puzzle pieces when you're doing a 5-piece puzzle. The way that they put everything together from a visual standpoint is really good. It's really nice, it's really clean. It's a joy to look at, is what I want to say. It's an absolute delight to look at this game. The sound design also, there's a couple of highlights in the video that you'll be able to see, and I'll leave some of it open later on, where it makes you feel like you're actually there. There's different parts where you can hear birds chirping, and you can actually hear rustling of feet in the grass. The way that your character's the way that your character's feet hits the ground, depending on the kind of ground it is, also adjusts. And I know that a lot of people will hear that and say, yeah, but that's like par, that's very standard. But something about this just feels really good, and it feels just really satisfying. And as you can see here, they took a lot of love and care in whenever you were doing a lot of traversal, like what we're doing here, everything's kind of really fleshed out and really well put together. Everything kind of molds together, everything kind of just fits. And the way that the scarf interacts with you is just really interesting. Now, there are a few teeny tiny things that are just like here and there. If you're a nitpicky gamer, most of you know I am very easy to please. Unless your game is like an absolute broken disaster, I am not gonna go in on you and be like, no, this game is dog shit. But there's small nitpicky things that I know very, very picky gamers are gonna call out, like the fact that there's some weird collision detection. There are some moments where you might be walking into a freaking beetle. Look at the scene. Oh, I love it. I love that whole like snapshot. Anyway, you'll run into like a beetle and it'll hold your whole character up. And here you can see one of the puzzles where they kind of dispel all the pieces and everything just dissipates like thread. There's some other weird things, like sometimes the jumping does get a little wonky despite the fact that the controls are really good. They're very straightforward, but there are occasions where, for example, when you're swinging your scarf on the hoops, if you rotate the left analog stick, it will hard turn your character and you'll be swooshing into the abyss. And that was awkward, but it was one of those things that after I had done it one time, I said, oh, I just don't put my thumb on the stick, and life continued just fine. It was fine. There was no reason to be really upset about it. But I was so busy kind of just gazing around at everything that was around me and also just openly exploring that a lot of those small things I just didn't care about because I was relaxed, I was comfy. It was kind of like if you added a little bit more engagement, so to speak, to a game like Journey, or if you want to take something straight out of the pages of Rhyme. It's just a nice, chill game to play. And it is very, very easy to get into it and just kind of do what we're doing here and just coast with it. There is, again, mostly spoiler free. I said mostly. There are multiple endings. But I will not tell you how to get those. I will show you that there's a collectible over here because I thought the paintings were really fun and really cute to find. There's paintings, there's toys, and then there's inks. And again, none of these are required to beat the game. You can get an ending perfectly fine with no issues, but the paintings are really nice because it gives you some insight into the artwork. The inks are really cool because it gives you some additional story. And the toys are probably the hardest to find, but the most interesting things to find, I feel, because it's always something that pertains directly to the level, and it's something your character gets to directly engage with. And as you can see on the scarf here, I have a couple of gold pieces that are actually at the top of it. Those indicate that I have secured those pieces of a puzzle that I need to complete. So literally it just fills out your scarf with like a really dope gold trim design that it looks like it could be an actual scarf in real life. Like if this was a scarf that was sold, I would probably buy it. I know I would buy it. I'm not gonna say probably. And this is just a puzzle where you can move around pieces, and they have different types of puzzles. They have piece moving puzzles, they have puzzles where you have to kind of do one little trick on the other side of the map and then go across the way to see what's changed. Here you can see we have a light puzzle that we're engaging where we have to get rid of all the lights in order to save the scarf. There's a couple of timing puzzles, and I want to emphasize that a lot of these puzzles are very, very low lift, which really helps with keeping the kind of ease and simplicity of the game. Because I feel like if they would have got something really in-depth, if they would have did something really intricate and said, oh, well, you have to do these things and then go back to this whole separate area, it would have lost a lot of that kind of comfort and relaxation that comes with it. There's 3 worlds for you to explore. I want to say that this one that I'm in is technically the 3rd one. And you can see it's just, everything's just really well put together. It's really well designed, really well handed out. And then you can do fun stuff like this where sometimes you ride the horsey. And I really enjoy little touches like this in games where it's just something interactable, something cute, something easy to add in. And it just really, really emphasizes that focus on comfort and just kind of forgetting about things. As you can see, the toys blend in really well. This is one of the collectible toys. It's just a little toy hammer, and it highlights it for you that you found it. The order that's on there does not indicate anything whatsoever. I had to get on the horse a second time. It was just, I couldn't deal with it. I was just so happy that I could ride the horse. But the toys are probably the hardest things to find just because they blend in with the environment so well, which is a direct testament to how much of the environment they took the time to really flesh out and just populate. And I know that's something a lot of people talk about, is how there's oftentimes you play a game and things just feel empty. And there wasn't really a point in this that I felt like things were empty or missing, or it could use a little bit more emphasis or a little bit more engagement. It just, everything felt like it fit together. I could gush about the design and the sound probably for the next 15 minutes, but I don't want to do that because we really only have about 15 minutes total. But all in all, I think it's a good game. I think it's a great game. Again, it's gonna run you less than 20 bucks, guaranteed. It might be on sale right now because we're in the Lunar sale over at Steam, so that's why I don't know the price off the top of my head, but I know for a fact it's not gonna be more than 20. And I highly recommend it if you want something to just kind of turn your brain off and relax a little bit. It's not gonna have extremely challenging and difficult puzzles for you to run around and say, okay, I have to figure all these things out. It's gonna take me like 2 hours to do it. Most of the puzzles I don't think take more than 10 minutes at worst, at absolute worst. The achievements are really easy to get, really straightforward to find, and there's nothing that's so off the beaten path that it feels like in order to do things, you have to go extremely out of your way. Also, the game won't let you really go extremely out of your way. It's open, but it's not so open that you're like, oh god, I'm actually lost. Another puzzle mechanic I thought was interesting is that sometimes you will have to do puzzles without the scarf, which means you can't double jump, you can't glide, you can't swing, so it really, really just makes you think about what to do next. So yeah, this is Scarf. It's great. I really enjoyed it. I have already done everything in it, and it took me about 9 hours. I know a lot of people don't like that, but you know, a lot of us that have jobs and stuff or limited time, this is great. I am perfectly fine taking a few hours out of my day to run through a flower field and float across a really well designed and developed landscape that's full of color, full of life, and full of interesting commentary around whether or not what you're doing at that current time may be the right thing and what's best for everyone. So I'll go ahead and put up some good, bad, and other things for everybody to kind of look at and really reflect on whether or not this is something that's worth your time. And I'll just go ahead and let you watch the rest of the video and enjoy the sound bites and probably me feeding rabbits a lot of apples. I'm actually pretty sure this is the part where I realized I could get apples and the rabbits could eat them, and I was like, I will gladly throw 20 minutes of my life away to this. And I may or may not have done just that.